Welcome back to the Talos of EV podcast. Drew didn't know I was going to do this, but you know what? I'm in a mood.
Thank you. I love it.
Yeah, there you go.
How are you going to sync me? But all right.
Well, you should have clapped.
I didn't know what you were doing.
Don't worry. We'll sync it in post at the end of it. Well, that's how we do it.
I'm editing it. Don't worry.
Oh, all right. So, how is things in California, you guys?
I supercharged today and half the superchargers didn't work.
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
That's gross.
It was almost comical in terms of timing. A few days before supercharging team gets like turned into a fraction of what it used to be. And then going to work today to supercharge beforehand. There's still people working on the team, Drew. It's just not that many left anymore.
I'm not convinced there is, from what I've heard.
I'm convinced. I'm pretty convinced that there's still a few people on there. How else are they going to make sure that things stay up in terms of...
I'm not saying it's a good idea.
That's how.
I would not have done what Elon did. Not because I'm smarter, but because the Tesla charging team does a pretty good job.
Literally the opposite. We're dumber. We need people smarter than us to help us lead this team. What in God's green and blue earth is going on this week that executives, dude?
Well, don't worry, Mike.
My stock is doing better, but I just want to get out of the whole Tesla game. I'm not even like trying to embellish or whatever for the show. I am so over it. I want to get out of the Tesla game financially. My car's paid off, so that's a whole different thing. But I want to vote with my dollar. And I just got an email today about, the voting is now opening for the board stuff. I want to vote with my dollar, and I want to dump all my stock, but I have a principle about that stuff. I'm
Coincidentally, I got a message on the app that the referral program is also dead or dying. So yeah. It's been
what is happening?
Be grateful that you weren't on Android, by the way, because
it's fine. It was just a software update thing. It's already back up if you haven't kept up to date with it. It went offline for a brief moment. Now it's back online. For those that have an Android phone and want to access your referral points and purchases and everything.
They straight up just removed it and had the people I was talking to on Android were running the latest version and they could not access their credits. So they just woke up and all their credits were gone that day. And they were like, well, this kind of sucks. But Mike, was this a V3 or a V4 charger?
It's I think it's a V2 or V3. It goes up to 150, 175, 200. It's around V2 or V3, I believe, in speed. No, it is a V3 because my speeds only go up to about 150, I think. And they usually don't cap out. They usually are about like...
You can tell by the cable. Was it thick cable or thin cable?
Oh, thick. It's thick cable. So
it's a V2.
V2, I guess.
Yeah. Well, not to worry, because I'm sure they're going to be getting to that and expanding the network as soon as they can. As soon as they find some people. But
I think this is only a great opportunity for those that are expanding their networks, like Mercedes, Volvo, and a bunch of others, partnering with Buc-ee's and Starbucks and all of them, to just pick up all these employees and use them for their bespoke charging stations.
The employees, I agree. Picking up the talent, I hope goes well. But I don't see much silver lining with this decision, as I kind of laid out in my video, just because this confuses and distorts everything in regards to the EV charging industry.
Well, just EVs in general, right? Yeah. How are you gonna use the EV if you can't charge it? It's a bit concerning.
We can still charge.
It's not only that,
but
when half the stalls are gone, or more than half of them, and the line just keeps on growing.
They kept the service people on, from what I've heard. The people who repair the chargers and maintain them, basically, are still around. But the bigger concern, for one, I don't think this would have been a good decision, even if it was articulated well and Tesla handled it with adequate communication. But even if they explained it in a blog post and said exactly what their plan is and why they're laying off the charging team or we're slowly scaling it back, even if they did have a PR team, I still think this is a bad decision. But the fact that they didn't is absolutely making it 100 times worse. That we're not
And then
really...
they killed the messenger boys for reporting on it.
Oh my god.
Didn't do anything to him.
I think he's following them again, but whatever. I don't care.
He is.
I don't care who he follows.
Yeah.
But
you guys
it
use
just
social
seems
media?
like a very emotional decision because nothing about it feels very rational, and it's hilarious to see how many Tesla bulls flipped from Tesla owns the gas stations of the next generation. You know, this is a huge revenue model for them. Think of all the chargers they're going to have, to suddenly saying, actually, you know what? Charging wasn't that important. Why does Tesla need to build chargers? Overnight.
Stop.
They suddenly flipped.
Stop.
Yeah, you know, I don't really see the point. What it's like, you guys not long ago were bragging about this, and now we're suddenly okay with it being gone. But there's email addresses
Freaking echo chamber
that just straight up stopped working. And there are contacts for both utilities, charging companies, and automotive companies that no longer have a way to contact Tesla. And I think that's the biggest loss that could come from this whole decision, is it may result in NACS not being progressed at the rate or at all, depending on which automakers were in discussion with Tesla. Because a lot of companies, in case people forget, a lot of companies were adopting NACS and jumping on this supercharger trend because of the charging network. It wasn't because of the port. They weren't doing it just to have the smaller port. They were doing it because they wanted supercharger access. And now hearing that they are slowing the growth and not, they straight up sent out an email to the employees saying, don't start any new projects. Finish the ones that have begun, but we're not going to deploy any new stations until we figure out what we're doing. That is a huge deal breaker, potentially, for a lot of these automotive brands that were relying on a higher voltage architecture like Hyundai and Kia, which is second place in regards to EV sales in the US. And they were all hesitant and wanting to jump on the next train, but they were waiting for some kind of commitment from Tesla that they were going to roll out higher voltage chargers. And now all of these talks that they were having or commitments that they were having, or people saying, oh, well, problem solved because we're going to get V4s everywhere with longer cables and higher voltage. Now all of that's, we're kind of fine with the chargers we have. We'll just sprinkle in a few where there's gaps, but we're just going to maintain the ones we already have. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, this actually gives a bunch of companies legitimate reason to stick with CCS, because now they don't see as long-term of a future with the superchargers, because it's not going to grow the way they thought, and it's not going to be higher voltage like they were promised it would be, because they thought Tesla was going to keep accelerating, keep growing, and
Does this make you more interested in the 1,000-mile range Aptera then, Drew?
I love the way you bring Aptera to the top. Yes, even more so now than before. I hope Aptera is still able to get NACS. But yeah, I think this decision was made very abruptly and without much foresight. But Randy, where do you fall?
It's interesting that with all these people, with this mass exodus happening, that there's a vacuum now. Something's gonna. I'm not confident that the things that are gonna replace what just left is gonna be for the better.
It can't be,
Elon,
right? There's just way too many advantages to keeping the people that were already there. They know what to do. They know what's necessary. So if you hire new people, they have to be trained. They have to figure out all of the crumbs that were left behind.
Not only that, the people he'll hire is going to be a bunch of yes men, I feel. He got rid of the old guard, so to say. Or excuse me, they left on their own accord because they want to spend time with their family. How rude. Sorry. Sorry, but the fact that like he's pulling, Elon's pulling like a real Zuckerberg move right now because he's too big and powerful to just like be fired. But I'm trying to see. I'm trying to play devil's advocate. I want to understand that maybe something radical needs to shaken up so that way people are on their toes. But that worked when you were the only real player in the game, at least with light years ahead of with your technology. It doesn't really work as much when now competition is catching up. This is the iPhone 4S with Siri. We're good. You know, like I just don't see. And then what happened to Siri? And then what happened to everybody else?
Nothing.
Tesla can't be on top forever. I always acknowledge to that. They can't.
They're not
can't be
really
the big-
anymore for many products. They've definitely fallen behind.
Depends on your
depends
definition
how we-
of on top.
Yeah, it depends how we want to quantify that. And it even depends on how Tesla wants to. We're not an automobile company. We're an energy company. We're not an energy company. We're a software company with AI. Like, it depends how they try to label themselves. But I guess where I'm trying to get at is that Tesla has brand recognition, has a toxic fan base, all the recipes and underlines of having a great, successful, big tech company of Android or iPhone or what have you. But I don't like the optics of it. I don't like that with so many people who have left, and then like the core ground team, the thousands of people laid off. I don't understand how you're gonna grow while also cutting employment. That the math doesn't make sense to me, and I don't know why they should. Is it that they're betting so big on this robotaxi thing, or the next gen whatever?
That's how I interpret this. The only thing I could think of is, Elon took over the sales team. We know that for the world. After a bunch of people left, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna be in charge of selling now. That's when he started tweeting out the new price cuts and stuff. And my guess is they did the price cuts. He fired the advertising marketing team, whatever, and then realized the demand is not where we thought it would be. So because we don't want to lower our prices much further, with the refresh 3 and everything, they probably already increased their manufacturing costs a bit already. The S and X are half the price they used to be. And they're like, we don't want to go much lower than they already are. And if the demand isn't there, maybe the low orders coming in are kind of scaring Elon into thinking, okay, we really got to turn this back into startup mode where we cut as much costs as possible because we need to be looked at and valued as a AI and robotics company, not a car company, because if you try to look at us at a car company, we're not going to grow at the rate we thought we were. Or the 4680s aren't as great as we thought they were going to be, or the batteries aren't as cheap as we initially thought. So he might be kind of pivoting the whole company in this regard, that in order for it to succeed, it basically needs to deploy autonomous vehicles at scale. And he straight up said in the last earnings call, like, if you don't believe Tesla will solve autonomy, then don't invest in us. And I think he may have echoed that sentiment with a lot of the board, with a lot of the company. And maybe that's why there's a lot of people leaving. They're like, Elon, wait, we should probably keep the charging team. We should expand the charging. And he's like, we're not a car company. Don't be so obsessed with car charging or whatever. Maybe in the robotaxi world, we can have one autonomous vehicle replace the job of 5 vehicles, and we don't need more chargers because each one of those cars will replace 5 cars. I don't believe in that future. I think it's going to be way more complicated than he thinks, but I have, without, of course, naming names, I have sources telling me, I hate saying this, but there are people that
No, you're good.
work or used to work at Tesla that have informed me that the internal plan that's not being communicated that well is to outsource a lot of the deployment and installation of superchargers to third parties. They kind of want to rely more on other companies,
7-Elevens, Chevrons, Shell.
which
sense.
personally I don't think is a good idea. Even if, okay, first of all, if that is the plan, you should probably explain that first. You should, and probably do it a bit more delicately. Like, we're going to be transitioned. Make sure that everybody's email still works so that all of these responsibilities and handoffs we're doing is communicated. Like, we're going to be scaling back our own in-house charging team so that third parties can participate, and you could even spin it. That's what a PR team would do. They'd be like, we want to open up charging to make sure that it's not just us. We don't believe in a monopoly for EV charging, so that's why we're opening it up, and we're still going to help with this transition. Instead of just firing everybody's email now falls apart. Everybody loses their contacts at Tesla. But even so, even if it was communicated well, relying on the gas stations to deploy the charging stations, I think, is not a good call, because they make their money from gas. They're not incentivized to sell electricity. The only reason Tesla did such a great job with the supercharger network is in placing them in the right places, making sure they had good uptime and they were well kept. The only reason Tesla did that is because most of their revenue came from vehicle sales. So they were incentivized for the car road trip experience to be good. Because they're incentivized for the charging network to be good and affordable, they make sure that the chargers are, reasonably located, reliable, have good uptime, which they have been. The gas stations are, as we've seen with Electrify America, EVgo, and ChargePoint, very difficult, darn near impossible for an independent company to make a profit selling electricity to vehicles. It's a lot of infrastructure. It's a lot of cost. It's a lot of maintenance. If they're doing it all by themselves and that's their only source of revenue, they don't make money. It's not a profitable business, which is why, in my opinion, it made so much more sense for the automaker, especially the biggest automaker that's incentivized to sell as many cars as possible. They're the ones who found a way to break even with it. Tesla was not super profitable on superchargers, but it was a break even. That was the goal for the longest time, was the cost of the charging covers the cost of the installation, but that helps us sell more cars. We got more orders wherever we put superchargers. So to say, oh, the gas stations can do it, the gas stations are probably going to deploy them just so they can get government funding from it. They don't have to make sure they're upright and working properly. It's gonna be Electrify America all over again.
I was just about to ask you that, actually, Drew. I wanted to ask you that. If do you think it was going to be better or worse? Would it be better or worse if the government got involved to help,
they kind of are
build
involved.
this infrastructure out?
There's NEVI funding.
Yes, but I mean a little bit more directly with infrastructure specifically. Do you think that helps the case? I guess what I'm actually really trying to ask you, I think you would have a better grasp about it, both of you would over me. Do you think, if not the government, should it not be better to not have a single point of failure, as we kind of feel like we're experiencing with Tesla?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't think it would result in a better experience, like charging wise. The reason Tesla was able to deploy as many as often as they did was because they had such a great charging team and they were financially motivated to. And I don't see that being the case with most other charge providers.
Well, we've got Iona on the way from the 7 big automakers, right? General Motors, Hyundai, Kia, Honda, BMW, Mercedes. I think I said BMW twice. And Stellantis. And they're focused more on a quality experience with canopies over the chargers, restrooms, amenities, and all that. So they'll most likely, in this circumstance, if Tesla follows this path, Iona will be more of the easy and luxurious charging experience, where it's got both CCS1 and NACS ports that you could plug into, or cables you can plug into your car. And then for all the other companies, to answer your question, Randy, I think it's a good idea to have these gas companies make it a little bit more popular, or at least not popular, but ubiquitous at their locations, because it gets people thinking, oh, I go to the same location, but instead of fueling up, I'm recharging and I'm just going into the building again to grab some, I don't know, corn pop or whatever. I don't know. Like it gets it. Well, how do I want to describe it? It's not destabilizing, but it's distributing the responsibility, so it's not all on Tesla. I think, yeah, Tesla is missing a lot of money on this or maybe not money, but at least, like you said, Drew, the reliability of the network might go down a little bit or maybe not network, but for the entire charging experience wherever you go, you're likely going to have maybe a worse experience because it's not all bespoke Tesla vertical integration. You're going to have to use the BP version of it. You're going to have to use the Shell version of it, and it might not be connected as easily. We don't know what that looks like on the back end either, whether Tesla's handling most of that or if BP and Shell and the rest of the oil giants need to upkeep it a little bit more. But I would like to think that this is good for promoting more third-party integration of charging stations so people aren't leaning on Tesla as much anymore. We can't rely on Tesla for everything. I think this is it's a terrible situation where many people lost their jobs, but I think overall this will result in a much more healthier market for charging stations on the corporate level. And then we might have some hiccups in terms of the consumer level of whether it is that streamlined or not. But I'd like to think a little bit more positively on that, where it's not going to be like EA, where it's a response to Dieselgate. This is going to be more in response to, we can get extra money off of this. Okay, let's try to make this work. And it won't be our main focus right now, but we could at least try it out.
What's it called again, Mike? This thing that they're working on?
Iona?
Yeah.
Oh, goodness, how do you spell it?
It did Ion with an A.
I believe so, yeah. IONNA. Yeah.
IONNA. Iona charging. Okay. I want to know more about this. Like, does it learn the lessons from EA, for example? I mean, we don't know that yet. But...
Well, they've got Seth Cutler, who's held positions at EV Connect, Electrify America, and General Electric, who will be the CEO of the company. But I like to think because you've got multiple companies in it and investing in it, there will be a little bit more interest in having it working. And especially with the news that Tesla's slightly leaving the game behind on their dominance in the market, it might incentivize Iona, or I guess that's what they're calling it, to make theirs a lot more superior in luxury and all that. And because it's backed by a whole bunch of different companies, there's a whole bunch of investment going towards it. So it's most likely going to be good quality compared to something that's in response to Dieselgate being EA.
You think they're still going to use NACS?
They've got both. They've reportedly said they're going to use CCS1 and NACS at their stations. And they're going to have a bunch of other amenities. They're going to have covers over the charging stations so you're not just sitting in the sun like in a supercharger. Because like you've said in the past, Drew, Tesla is pretty much like the McDonald's of the automotive market. They're trying to churn things out as quick and cheap as possible. So why would they put a canopy over it? That doesn't make sense. Just sit in your car and blast the AC, or go into a nearby store.
So
exactly.
If you can build 2 locations without canopies, that improves the road trip experience because you now have 2 different places you can stop at or charge at, opposed to one.
But Iona's not the only one, though. There's many other third-party networks, like you said. All the oil companies, these gas stations are going to be adopting it
to make a profit. But yeah.
So that's why they're going to buy into it a little bit more and throw more money at Tesla to take their superchargers. They're not stopping supercharging production, as far as I can tell, or at least that's what I'm getting from what you've said and what your sources have said. It's the fact that they got rid of the expansion part of the team. So you're not going to see more and more superchargers popping up in regards to it's just the Tesla logo on it and nothing else. You'll notice that it is a Tesla stall, but it's going to have a giant vinyl sticker plastered on it saying that this is a Shell location charger. So it's still going to have that hardware. It's just, it might not be, who knows what the software looks like on the back end. I'd have to look more into what that deal looks like for BP and Tesla.
But they don't know, and I doubt we know. I just
I don't think
that
it's all doom and gloom, though.
it's not doom. I would say it's a lot of gloom, though. I don't think it's a very profitable business, which is why I don't expect BP to try very hard, because it's not going to be a huge revenue stream. Because we're adding a middleman instead of just Tesla builds the chargers, installs the chargers. Now you got, well, this person manufactures it, this person installs it. They need a cut. They want a profit off that. Then they have to put them in the ground. Then the people who's paying for the power wants a cut. I just think it's going to confuse everything. I think it'll just distort the charge port industry, which I thought we were all on board with the whole NACS train. And now I think it's going to be, actually, CCS we're going to keep around, and NACS will keep around. And that means multiple plugs or more adapters, more cables, or longer cables without a standardized charge port location, longer cables at cost. I think I get why people didn't want to be so dependent on Tesla, but I thought that it was going to be a lot more helpful and beneficial to have someone kind of spearheading the movement, which is...
And they did. They did spearhead it, but now it's time to pass the torch, according to their CEO or Techno King. Is that they don't want to do the expansion anymore. So they're going to hand it off to the third parties and everyone else to take up that piece of the pie.
I just don't think it was the right time. I don't think they were anywhere close to being like done or like done with the transition.
Well, we're never going to be done. We're never going to be close to it. The only time that we're going to be that closer is when charging stations upon like double/triple of the stations that you see for gas pumps are as frequent as gas pumps. And that's going to take a very long time and a whole lot of infrastructure to build it up. And thankfully, Tesla still has Gigafactory New York running on all cylinders. It's just the expansion is no longer going to be Tesla's choice for where they want to put it. It's going to be up to the gas stations to either integrate it in their locations or somewhere adjacent, or you're going to have other companies like Rivian and the Rivian Adventure Network choosing very unique in weird locations that you wouldn't see a charging station. And then others such as Iona taking advantage of maybe something in between that isn't out in the middle of nowhere, but isn't necessarily like in a location that you'd prefer. But at least for like city centers where you would expect a more luxurious experience, there's not just going to be all the filled up superchargers. You're going to have Iona stations that can service both NACS and CCS1 ports. And that will help alleviate the lines that we see in the big cities. So I agree it might be somewhat of a hit on the NACS port, but I don't think it's halting. We're decreasing the acceleration from 4.6 to 5.1. Or 5.2, whatever. We haven't talked about that yet, but I think we've decreased the rate of acceleration, but I don't think it means that we need to worry about the future of electric car charging significantly. I think it's just a speed bump that we're hitting right now.
I think Tesla was building
growing
more.
pains.
Yeah, very painful. Tesla was deploying more and building more and spreading more faster than others. I guess the thing I see it is Iona, other charge point providers, like nothing was slowing them down. I don't think it hurts them if Tesla just continued deploying at scale. I wanted to have both. Iona announced this network before Tesla scaled back on charging. What's to stop Tesla from deploying a bunch of chargers while other companies can deploy their own chargers? And if
Their
this was the
CEO.
fastest one,
Their
what?
CEO chose it. The CEO chose to scale back on it.
Yeah, I know that. I'm saying
Yeah.
it's a bad idea, but
It is. It's his choice. If you want to not let that happen, vote. If you're a shareholder, vote against a lot of different things that are going on.
The vote is not on should he be in charge. The vote's on is compensation package, which is
Don't give them the compensation package. And along with that, then vote with your wallets, like Randy said at the beginning of the podcast. Don't buy a Tesla. Go buy something else.
Oh, I'm just trying to sell my stock, but I want to sell it at the right amount.
Oh, well, that works too.
I just
I'm trying to get out of the game,
is
guys.
Substantially slowed down. That's how I see it.
I don't want to.
Most likely, yeah.
Be financially invested in their decisions anymore because I feel myself getting more emotional about things I shouldn't care about. But I'm like, oh my god,
That's the stock market, Randy. It's all emotion.
I know. Well, I don't like this year's version of the stock market. But so what you're saying, Mike, in so many words, is growing pains. That's what's happening right now. Still, very possible a better outcome from it, but there's growing pains.
Definitely a better outcome. Less reliance on Tesla. Better outcome on not relying on Tesla as much anymore.
The free market guy in me says that's great, but the thing is, no one else has done it well, and I'm not convinced these 7 companies here. If they're invested, I think they're invested for the wrong reasons.
There's no Iona Chargers, just so we're clear. This company's a JPEG.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I'm looking at it. Yeah, I'm looking at it, and I see BMW, GM, Honda, Hyundai, Kia, Mercedes, and Stellantis. Like, what I see is a line of legacy auto that hasn't done anything to make anything better, leading up to the EV revolution. So I'm not all that confident that anyone's going to get it better just because Tesla still, as much as this part sucks, has time on their side. They spent a lot of time building out this network. Cheaper, okay, fine. But cheaper or not, more reliable than what was going on with EA. And I just have trust issues. At the end of the day, that's what it is. I just outright have trust issues. I haven't experienced what you experienced, though, Mike. I have not come across some part where half the charging stations weren't working. And if I do come across that, I'm going to feel a type of way about that. Mm-hmm. But at this moment, I don't have that exposure. I don't have that bias towards that part of it. But nonetheless, it doesn't make it any less real. And that's where, like, I'm agreeing with Drew in the sense that I don't like where they're going with this because of situations like that. There was a time I remember, like, such a quick turnaround about, like, if something was down, they'd send somebody out, get it fixed. And this is anecdotal, but in what I'm seeing with the 2 charging stations that we have here in city, not that much maintenance, for lack of a better word, is being like allocated towards the charging stations. But I don't know. I want there to be other networks, healthy networks, for good competition.
Absolutely.
I believe in that. I do believe in that. It's done well in the consumer tech industry. There's no reason why I won't do well in the EV industry. It's done well in other automobile industries for more or less the same reason. But with that still being said, I'm 80-20, 80 favoring supercharging over the 20 that, like, I have severe trust issues of what the competition is putting out there. Not to say that it won't get better. I want it to get better. I don't know. And I'm trying to put aside my bias as well. Like, I charge at home, so I'm not really that affected. And when I charge downtown, I have free miles right now, so I'm really not that affected. But it's not about me. I'm looking, like, big picture as a shareholder. I'm thinking about, like, how does this help grow the non-automobile part now of Tesla? I don't really like what I'm seeing this past week. I don't like what I'm seeing this past year. But I think I want to get out of my being invested is because that's what Elon's saying. As long as he's head of the company, it's not that I believe or don't believe in robotaxi. I'm just not interested in that being, like, the end all be all. I don't want to be the person who says allocate all this resources, my money, towards that. Fix this. This is real. This is today. And work on tomorrow. Do both. And he's like, no, it's robotaxi. That's what we're gonna solve and fix.
I slightly disagree with that because, like I said before, the factory is still churning out all the superchargers. They're just going to third parties now. So it's all, I guess it is dependent on how many third parties are coming in to Tesla and saying, we'll buy it. And then Tesla makes that many. So we'll see.
And those other companies, I doubt, are going to have logistics as efficient as Tesla's was. Like, they're the kind that could buy them up and store them, or say, well, we're just going to put 2 at every gas station because that looks good for our bottom line, even if it's not convenient for the driver. You know, Tesla had the data to say, this is where a charger is needed, this is where a charger is needed. These gas stations, they're not going to have this kind of data. They're just going to put them wherever. We've already seen that with road trip videos when it comes to Tesla charger location versus EA charging location, and Tesla pricing. You know, the company that literally makes money off of oil and gas, I don't think is going to be incentivized to price EV charging low. If anything, quite the opposite. They would want you to pay a premium so that you go, hey, EV charging isn't that great, I guess I should just keep driving my gas car. Or, you know, I don't trust.
Well, that's where the competition comes in. That's where all these third parties start competing with each other. And you start seeing, it's pretty much like gas. Oh, look, the Chevron over there is like $6.25, while the Texaco over here is $6.01 or whatever. So you're gonna get those price comparisons that are gonna happen in live time, pretty much, which seems kind of weird.
But what if it goes the way of like smartphones now all being expected $1,000 when not that long ago $500 was the base price, and now it's like you're expected to actually get a working good, the one that's promoed smartphone, $1,000. That's the low end now.
Well, that's the tough
competition
thing to compare
just
to,
copied
right?
Apple. Competition copied Apple on that, and even though they haven't raised the price, that didn't do us any favors for that. If you want a cheap iPhone now for that $500, you buy an iPhone SE. If these other competitions, if you think that they're just gonna like, oh, we'll offer cheaper, I think they're just gonna match whatever the new rate is going to be when it inevitably goes up, because now we're outsourcing. Everybody's got to get a cut, and that falls on us. We're going to be the ones paying for that, and I think everyone else is going to take advantage of us.
Sure.
For that.
And that's where the growing pains is going to be, is how much can they upcharge on the electricity per what it actually costs at that time and location, in which that's most likely where, if they start abusing it too much, we're going to start seeing lawsuits, and it's going to go into law, and there might be some type of standard, or at least some type of litigation that's going to be heard by the government and by all these companies, and some settlement's going to have to occur where either there's some restriction of how much you can upcharge on electricity, because it's going to become a good that we're going to become a lot more dependent on as we're converting transportation vehicles from gas to electric more and more and more in terms of the shares on the road. And it's going to be tough to try to figure out where that goes. But I don't think necessarily it's going to become a smartphone game, because smartphones are a device. Electricity is a good, and it's specific towards electric vehicles. So I see the niche part of it. But I think this is where...
neither are right. Just because it's a good and a commodity, it might be essential. It's not our right.
No.
I don't see protections coming to us the same way having like accessibility to water or something.
Sure.
Like the idea of let me take a step back really quickly. Growing pains. We are the early adopters, okay? I accept that. I acknowledge that. And we paid a premium on higher end vehicles that people can't afford. I acknowledge that too. The handoff I'm forecasting is, as cost of the vehicles goes down, cost of electricity goes up. And it might hurt them that when we're in that mass adoption phase of things, that these guys, because of everything that's kind of like going on, they're like, man, I thought this was going to be cheaper than gas. It's a little bit cheaper. But that's also not that subjective, but that's also reprogramming the brain of like how money and all that's allocated. I still believe EVs are the most efficient and cost effective vehicle out of anything, bar none. Even if it was the same price as gas, just because we don't have oil and transmission fluids and all that stuff alone, I believe that. But a lot of people are like, I don't want to pay $50, $40 per charge if I have to charge at a supercharging station, because some of these guys, maybe they live like in apartments or something where they don't have accessibility just plugging in at their home address. And
A lot of renters.
I feel like, a lot of renters. I feel like we the end user, maybe not literally us, but we as the buyers will bear a lot of that like cost for their trial and error of things. You know what I'm trying to figure out in my head is how can it still be, how can we make it fair for everyone, consumer and company and inevitable government involvement. They're already involved with rebates and tax incentives, and companies benefit from that. But I don't know what that healthy balance is. I just feel like where we're at right now and what looks like it's about to happen is going to, the literal us now, will bear the weight of that transition first in a way that, like, I'm not really vibing this.
Yeah.
The context of it is that I'm still charging at home, so I don't think I really care.
No.
You know what I mean? But I'm not everyone's situation. So
The way I'd fire back is what's stopping Tesla from upcharging even more. What happens when Elon thinks, you know what? We need more money from these superchargers. We're going to increase the rates. And everyone is depending on their superchargers or these superchargers to charge. And now they're being upcharged on everything just because Elon wants more money from the superchargers, so that way he can fire off more of the staff to focus on autonomy and the robotaxis, right? That seems like it's not far in the future in terms of a reality.
Well,
So
they did away with the referral, and it's being revamped again. So
right,
that's
who knows?
the first stage of that, coming to fruition.
Right. And then something else to think about is the subscription service that we already see in media. Is that if you subscribe to it for like a long time or for at some rate, you might get some discount versus going there or trying to buy a movie one off and all that. Like it's a whole balance of costs and all that. You've got companies like Electrify America and EVgo and a bunch of others that are using some type of subscription plan, so that way, you're having to pay another subscription, which I really don't like. But you might get a discount on it if you're using it that much more. You might be saving a lot more rather than just paying the upfront price at that exact time and location that you're at it for whatever the, I guess, in situation you not subscribe to that, that service, you might just have to pay that premium price. So you might just have to subscribe to a certain service like we do with Disney Plus and Netflix and everything else, in which that seems like the future, right? There's already like the Shell Rewards program and a bunch of other those where you get a discount on or you get benefits from using like a Chevron towards Safeway or other things like that. So I'm thinking that's more of an inevitability, and that's what we're going to see more. And I think there's going to be a lot more competition, but also a part of me still struggles with the idea of, well, we're already seeing Disney Plus and Max increase their monthly or annual price as well for no reason, pretty much. So we could see that as well, but that might just, it's going to get into some legal precedent eventually, because it doesn't make sense that you can increase it forever. You're going to hit a bottleneck at some point where you're going to have to back up. So I think the worry is what we have right now is nice with the Tesla supercharging network, where we get somewhat decent rates. It's still expensive, but at least Tesla's not upcharging a ridiculous amount as far as we can tell. But I don't think those days are forever. I don't think that's how the future is going to be. where we're able to just capitalize on the fact that Tesla's able to produce this many and still pretty much offer electricity rates possibly at a loss for operating costs. So it only makes sense that this is most likely the way the future is going to go, whether we like it or not, which is a bummer. But at least if you've got more competition, there is a more likely chance for competitive pricing to occur, and you get prices going down live time, just because X business is getting a whole lot more business at that time, and the one next door wants to get in on that as well, so they lower their price. Where we might just have that happen, but for electric vehicles instead of gas, which sounds more realistic.
I hope that scenario you're painting out is how it goes and not the other way around. I hope it goes the way of
gas stations
trying to
rather
get market
than
share.
Netflix and Disney Plus.
Yeah, like I obviously want that route where it's like the next up and coming whatever is trying to get that market share. So then they treat everything like it's still the startup headspace where like, hey, look, if that is 75 cents a kilowatt hour, we'll charge 50. Then now you're like, heck yeah, I'll go over there. Mm-hmm. I hope it does that way. I hope it's that way instead of they're 75, so we could do 74 or 73. The way you were painting the gas station, like I hate penny pinching. It feels like a genuine waste of my time when I'm trying to just compare the two from Chevron or I don't know. What's the other
Texaco.
one? I'm forgetting gas stations.
Valero.
Valero, there you go. Like I know Chevron and I know Shell, right? So those two. And I look like, oh, 537, 535. Oh, but it's quicker just to go to the 537 than go over here and make it like I think about time versus money. And I hate wasting time more than I hate wasting time, and I would pay the premium to not waste time, but it's only because of that price difference. If it's like 537, but that one is $4.99, well, then I will sacrifice my time to wait in that line and go over there. About the subscription model thing you're talking about, Mike, I think the first thing that went to my head was Costco or like a Sam's Club, and how you have an annual of like $60 or whatever dollars a year, but they pass the savings in other ways down to like, okay, maybe we're not making the most money off of gas, but when people come to our store and they buy in bulk and like, because that business model of having a membership, an annual membership, really kind of like it's all done in-house, even from like prescriptions to optometry and you name it, they got it all. You could buy your coffin at Costco. Morbid.
That's hilarious.
But they still have from birth to death, they got something for
diapers
you.
to ditches.
Diapers to death. Like we got you covered. And I always noticed and I've always appreciated that Costco gas is just cheaper. And I don't think it's something where it's just so diluted.
It's a long line.
Put water in the gas or something, but it's just cheaper. They pass the savings into the point where it's like if I was still driving a gas vehicle, I would make my money off of the 60 whatever the annual fee is now.
Sure.
Just at the pump. I'd make my money back in that.
And that's what I'm seeing with like Iona is that it might be a more premium experience, but maybe what they're gaming on is people going in to these services that they're offering there. And then that's how they can pass some of the savings along, is that you're buying a drink or some Skittles at the store that they own at that charging location. So,
yeah. On paper, it sounds okay. I'm just...
Right. We don't know what the future is, but what I'm getting at is...
paranoid.
Yeah.
On paper, EA sounded okay, too.
Maybe, yeah.
Not in practice.
No.
But not in practice. Yeah.
Oof.
So, I mean, like you said, it's not just Iona or EA or anything else. You've got these private deals like what Mercedes and Buc-ee's have, or what Hyundai is doing, I think, on their own, in also addition to what they're doing with Iona. And then you got Volvo and Starbucks. And then I'm sure the deal between Best Western and Tesla is still going on, where the destination chargers are still going to be there. So there's still options out there. And it's not just us relying on ChargePoint to give us everything that we need. Thankfully,
hear you.
ChargePoint doesn't have to be Atlas with the world. We've got a whole bunch of others that can fill some of the gaps. It's not going to fill the entire gap, Drew, but I do think that there's still hope yet for not a completely bleak future that it might seem.
Yeah. I think my big disagreement is I just don't think that the EV charging business in itself is going to be very profitable, which is why I struggle to contemplate the third party, the middleman, being well motivated or like creating a better experience, just because Tesla was so vertically integrated with this whole process. That's how they were able to expand and grow so fast. And I didn't think that needed to take away. It's not that I'm anti-competition. I want Iona. I want everybody else to rev up. It just feels like we lost our biggest, booster on this rocket. And now we're going to be reliant on a lot smaller boosters to lift this huge industry. And
sometimes the SRBs burn out. Good thing we have the main engine to propel us the rest of the way.
I look at it as Tesla was the main engine. Everybody else was playing catch up with Tesla. And now no one... Basically, the bar has been substantially lowered to become first place. So that means that we're not going to accelerate as quickly. The experience is probably going to be more inconsistent. I agree they'll probably go the membership route. The main reason they do memberships is they're trying to find a way to turn it profitable. Tesla does the membership too for non-Teslas. And they're doing that because they know they're not making money from the car sale itself. So that's why they want to pay.
They're not making money from the car sale itself. Tesla's
so
not
when you
making
buy
money
a
from car
Tesla,
sales?
you don't have to pay a membership. But
Sure.
if you pay for charging in a non-Tesla, it's more expensive, or you can subscribe $13 a month to get it at the same price as a Tesla. So Tesla's looking at it as, okay, some of the profits from our vehicle sales we can use on our network. We didn't sell you a vehicle, so we're going to profit off of you more. And I think that's going to be looked at throughout the whole industry. If we have more middlemen, we have more people that are not in the car selling business, but mainly just we just dispense the electricity. They're going to need a cut. When we have a more scattered market like this, it's going to result in higher prices. Or if we have more standards we have to adopt because CCS has to stick around now, that's more cost, that's more complexity.
Why does that have to stick around if they're not slowing down supercharging production?
The deployment I don't think is going to be handled as wisely by BP, as they are not motivated.
It's not just BP buying it though. I'm sure there's going to be other customers, or there are other customers that haven't been listed yet that are potentially buying it. Heck, Iona could honestly, or Ionity as well, they're another company too, they could also be buying these up and then putting them wherever. Like there's a few Ionities in locations that are convenient to me, like the place that I supercharged this morning also had an Ionity charger for free. You can charge there for free. It's just slow, but it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be a lot. It's not like you have to put 15 of them in a specific location. It's you got a whole bunch of third parties placing what's effectively 15 to 30 or whatever in the same location that a supercharger could have gone, but now you've got a competition for what the price is. I see that more as a plus than a minus.
I see it as more complexity, more middleman. That's why EA was not that great, was because of the complexity in the system. They weren't the manufacturer, they weren't the installer. They're just trying to be this middleman in a system, which adds more cost. And I hope you're right. I hope it doesn't change much. I hope every V4 supercharger that gets built is immediately bought up, but I just, it's unknown. It's at one point there was kind of a plan and we saw it unfolding, and now it's all been thrown up into, who knows? We'll find out. And it was a lot more certain, I think, before. It's like you could just adopt NACS and rely on superchargers, and if other people enter the picture and want to compete, that's great. But now it's like, they really better step up to the plate, because if they don't now, it's going to be a huge mess, and I think it could substantially slow the EV adoption. I would say it's like performance Model 3 versus Blazer EV in terms of acceleration. There's a big gap. It's not a acceleration boost.
Well, that's
gap.
a physical quantity versus a financial quantity. One's a lot more easy. Well, never mind. I'm not gonna get
exactly.
But,
that's my point. It's a bigger gap.
No, that's not what I'm trying to say. But that's fine.
Well, hopefully the charging industry is able to maintain themselves, but I feel bad for everybody who did amazing work. You know, I understand layoffs for trimming up the fat, but I just think there were so many talented people in that division that were core to the business that were just gone. And I don't know. To me, it'd be like if Apple fired, you know, the whole Apple Silicon team. It would be like, what? Wait, seriously? Like, why? Like they were doing so.
Then they go to another company, and then that company builds something that is somewhat equivalent, if not that more niche to that company.
Yeah,
it's only a. It's
Mike,
a
how come you're not lamenting in the
you seem to be agreeing.
part...
You're just accepting of.
Yeah, you're just
news.
like, and then they go do something else and everything works out. I was like, I get that point, but like, this didn't I get that, but this didn't need to happen like this.
It didn't need to happen, but it did happen, and this is what happens when you have Elon Musk as your techno king for your company. If he wants to call himself the techno king, whatever, CEO, whatever he wants to call himself, I don't think the way that he manages Twitter is now the way that he's trying to morph what Tesla's into, or what he wants to morph Tesla into, and we can't keep on relying on this guy. Like, I get it. He's made some amazing things with his companies. Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink. Some would say Boring
Starlink
Company
signal
is
looks
not
great,
in there.
by the way.
Starlink has been great. It's been fantastic. I love it. But the fact is, we can't keep on relying on him because we're giving him too much power, and he's going to use that power to whatever motives and choices that he wants to make. So we can't just keep on giving this guy more and more.
I didn't give him the power though. Is the difference
No, but the way that you are lamenting it, it seems like, yeah, it is a loss, but I don't think we should keep on relying on them. Keep on your reliance on a single system is not the way to build a ecosystem, or at least a whole entire fabric of reality. If one brick is the only thing that's keeping you from falling over, that's not a good system. You want to have a few more bricks in there to make sure that you're stable. So the heavily relying on Tesla to do everything for supercharging or for charging in general, I don't think is the way forward. I think it's great that they accelerated it and that they're still making them. I just don't think we need to rely on them as heavily as we've been.
Well, the beauty of the competition is I'm not saying we need to rely on them and they can be the only one. I'm saying others should strive to be more like them. That's why I applauded Rivian so much with the Adventure Network. Is yes, follow by example. This is how Tesla made it work. Others can compete with that by trying harder rather than, okay, well, Tesla's not trying that hard. It'd probably have a ripple effect than others just not trying either, because they're like, well, if Tesla's struggling to sell cars, why would we try? That's what GM's doing. They're pushing back their EV plans already.
Well,
Toyota's only going to do hybrids.
Yeah, well, they're a Japanese company. They're not a U.S.-based company, and they don't have a huge incentive.
That doesn't matter. What if they're U.S. or Japanese-based? It's reading the room, and these other guys are like, that looks painful. I don't want to go through that. And like a lot of these guys, and again, legacy, stuck in their ways, don't want change. They don't want to be dethroned. They don't like growth. They are resting on their laurels about something that happened almost a century ago. And they're like, yeah, well, I did my part. I'm good.
But here's the silver line. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Randy. I'll let you finish.
My more or less, really quickly, Mike. I get what you're saying. I see the point that you're making. I have a disconnect with it because 95 to 99% of my charging is at home. I am genuinely not affected by this change. I could not have noticed a difference nor cared. But the the part that I feel like I think maybe emotionally invested in why I'm lamenting is that when I bought into Tesla before the car, starting with stock, was me saying, yes, accelerating the future to EVs. Nowhere in that whole thing was robo-taxis and FSDs. That was all like, hey, we made some cool stuff. Bump, perks to the car. Sweet. Yeah, I'm down. Let's do it. It felt like it was more like, not gifts, but like, we just did this thing. The same way he goes, ha, we made an ATV. Like, okay. Like, it just, you got things that you're doing and just whatever's sticking, but like the core thing was that like accelerating the transition to EVs.
That's not their goal, though.
And I feel
their goal is to accelerate the world to sustainable energy or sustainable transportation.
But when I start to see now the world try to catch up, now we're not talking about Tesla, and I see them cutting corners, and I see them not putting in the same legwork because it's hard and they don't want to do it, I go, yep, that's the legacy I remember. Nothing sexy about you. Nothing appealing that makes me want to do business with you, from buying your freaking cars to the designs in the house to all the like things inside the things inside the vehicle that just feel antiquated. When I see that happening, but then they look at the leader of the pack here, Tesla, start to do some weird things where it's like, like they're kind of like can be construed as like they're cutting corners. Oh, we want to deal with that. We want to focus on other things. Gives the other guys permission to be like, see, yeah, no, too ambitious. Not going to worry about that.
Yeah.
Hence why I'm talking about the hybrids over EVs. I don't care if it's Japanese made, American made. That part doesn't matter. It's we're talking about like world transition, and I feel there's like, it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And I hope it's that way and not 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Right now it doesn't look like that, but that's where I have like this like, ooh,
well,
wrong move. That was a wrong step. There was a slip there. I feel.
I agree. No.
Because now everyone else is watching and they're going, yeah, that does look painful. Let somebody else deal with it. And then it's just the same business model with a new skin on it called EVs, but everybody's just cutting their corners again, and they're just, oh, that's okay. We got market share. That's good enough.
I both agree and disagree with that, because Tesla leading the charge on that means that other companies can sit back and let Tesla do all the work. That's why everyone said we're jumping on the NACS bandwagon. Why would they want to do all the work for setting up superchargers? When
NACS is open source, though. That was an open source
I get
thing.
that.
They never
but when
patented or anything.
they are adopting NACS, the idea is we get to tap into the Tesla charging network, right? That's somewhat part of the agreement that they can make with Tesla. But with the letting go of all of these engineers who have been doing that acceleration, not the CEO, who's now choosing to focus the company not on their goal of accelerating the world to a sustainable energy, but autonomy, and focusing more on autonomy. Yeah, maybe sustainable energy, you can interpret that. Some people who are going to argue this is that the way to be sustainable with the energy is decreasing the amount of cars on the road because there's going to be robotaxis, like you said, Drew. But that's the way you could justify it. But that's not how it's... For at least right now, I agree that that's not going to happen overnight. And so it doesn't make sense to make this rash decision to get rid of all these engineers. But thankfully, a lot of those engineers are still passionate about their career and what they were doing. And now they've been let go from their positions at Tesla. And there's a whole bunch of other companies like Iona who are looking for that talent for their business. So it's only going to boost that acceleration for those companies to hire up these engineers who are coincidentally now looking for work.
That's the part I agree with you, Mike. I wholeheartedly understand that. I get that. It's the whole, that other part you just mentioned a minute ago, the whole now autonomous driving thing where it's like, why did we sidestep from that? We were on a good trajectory. We're doing great. Like, we have the ramp up. We have everything. Like, everything feels great. And now it's like, well, it almost feels like you're doing like a marathon and you're so far ahead. You're like, I'm going to just stop. and wait for a minute. Just chill. It's one thing to take a rest. So
Well-
that's maybe not the best comparison, but hang on.
Sure.
But it's this whole like they were doing so great, and they are doing great. Like just in general, supercharging.
The
as a whole.
charging
What
team
a
specifically
concept.
was like, I've been saying for over 4 years now, was the best thing about Tesla was that network.
Yeah. And so that sidestep to me is that's the part. It's like where I'm lamenting, not that the fact that like now all this great talent is open for grabs because now non-competes are illegal. Take that.
Good time.
So that's great. I'm happy for them. It's just I'm saddened that this. Why did we change our path?
Sure.
It slowed it down. I think we'll still get to the end result. That's where I agree with you, Mike. They'll go over somewhere else. That'll help and get their things up and going. But now we're going to wait. And that's what Drew, and where I'm agreeing more with Drew, is that it's just going to take longer now to get there because we stopped for no reason. Or, well, there is a reason. There is a reason. We stopped when I felt like it wasn't necessary. And I'm like, okay, fine. The talent is talent. As long as they ain't dead or not down to like some gross non-compete contract or something that doesn't matter anymore, then like, you're right. They're going to find jobs and they're going to be fine. Even up to those senior execs who just left Tesla. It's just unfortunate. It's like that's still a speed bump along the way. The growing pains.
Yeah.
And I acknowledge, fine. Changing will always happen within companies. It's just unfortunate that someone who has such a significant advancement in the space with supercharging seems to be taking their own platform for granted because of other ambitions now.
Yeah.
And it's sad. And that's where I'm going to vote with my dollar with a lot of things on Tesla. And I just kind of want to exit the Tesla space as a whole as an investor. I don't agree with the current alignment of it. So
I agree.
that's it.
And I've been
That's
thinking about it as well with my stocks as well. But what's more demoralizing? Having the guy in first place be 3 laps ahead and you're slightly competing with the pack behind you, or the guy that was 3 laps ahead is now actually a couple, like tens of yards ahead of you now, and you just got some great running shoes that he was using and something else.
What's demoralizing is everything leading up to it. It's the dude's behavior. It's the everything that.
Yeah. Well, just thinking about
just
it in that comparison, you either have a guy trying to drag the whole group of people on the track towards the end and maybe they're just demoralized and don't want to do it, or you've slowed down and now they see, oh, this is a time to catch up, and we can stick it to them saying we have a larger charging system than Tesla because the bar
I
has
hope
been
that
dropped a
team
bit
stays
more.
together wherever they go. I think they're great. I don't want to see them too fragmented. I hope somebody somewhere snatches them all up in one big bundle, not out of like greediness and no one else can have their talent, but there was something that was working there, like sometimes lightning in a bottle, and it was good.
Sure.
My analogy would be the guy 3 laps ahead convinced everybody else to join the race. And I still personally see it as a risk that, just like how we're seeing Ford and Toyota and several other automakers kind of scale back on production, there's still a risk that if they don't see Tesla succeeding or flying away with EVs and charging, that they go back to their old ways, you know? I hope you're right. I hope they step up to the plate and take it as a challenge of like, okay, we can't rely as much on Tesla as we originally thought. Let's hire up these people and start rolling out reliable, good chargers quickly. I hope that's how it goes. But seeing exactly how a lot of these legacy automakers are already handling EVs, I think there's a high likelihood that a lot of them will use this as an excuse to, well, see, if Tesla can't make it work, why should we try? So let's not bother. We'll go back to gas.
Fair. I think that's a
my
fair
concern.
assessment.
I hope
Sure.
I can gather your optimism. I think at this point If the trend continues and Elon just keeps cutting out everything that's not autonomy focused, Rivian is our best bet. Rivian's doing.
I don't think so. No,
I'm not mad about that.
I don't think we should rely on one pillar. It doesn't make sense to put all your marbles in one basket.
No, I say that with an Aptera hat. I'm not saying that Rivian's the only chance. I'm just saying of the all-electric startups, and I prioritize
is the
them.
Sexy chance.
I prioritize them because they don't have a fallback plan. Hyundai, Kia, Ford, Toyota, GM, all these guys, they have gas cars to fall back on. Rivian doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I say, as far as like a EV-only company goes, they're building out a network, unlike most other EV startups, and they've got an amazing product offering, and they seem a bit less focused on autonomy, a bit more focused on let's just make great vehicles people love, which I
maybe,
appreciate.
but they've got the horizon of whatever their level 3 system that they teased at the R2 and R3 event that's coming.
But they're not betting the company on that, you know.
No, in fact, they got $800 and something million for their normal plant from Illinois, which is very great for them.
That's huge. That's huge.
That means
to me.
that probably helped fund a lot of the R2 production startup and manufacturing.
Easily, and more so than just the 800 million that it helps, because they're burning cash and they need more cash, of course. I think the other good news is that because it's from the state of Illinois, that's the state of Illinois extending, we want you to pump more jobs, you know, we want you to pump more infrastructure into this area. If you get a state government now looking at you as a supplier of jobs, the likelihood of, even if things go bad for Rivian and they need a bailout, the bailout is far more likely because they're being viewed by a investor. It's not an Amazon. It's not a Ford. It's a big government entity saying you are an asset to this community, to this state, to the country. So we need to make sure that you succeed. So to me, some people were just reading that headline like, oh, cool. We even got some money. That's nice. But I'm like, no, that's what it. Yes, it's nice, but it means a lot more that the state is now investing in them as you are crucial to this economy because of the labor.
They just got married and they didn't even know it yet.
Right. So I was very excited.
Shotgun
for
wedding.
That. I was really happy for them to see that. So I know they're not profitable or anywhere close to that, but their shutdown's almost done with the R1 refresh, and they're hoping to be gross profitable by the end of this year, not net profit, but still that was a huge sign of confidence for me. Nothing has made me want to buy Rivian stock more than that announcement, honestly.
Yep.
Yeah. Vote with your dollar. That's all I'm saying. Vote with your dollar.
Vote with your dollar. Yeah. EV stocks aren't a great investment in general, but we'll talk more about that later. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
We'll talk about Tello next week for y'all that are interested in what
hopefully we have
Drew and I got to see when he was here.
Yes.
Including me. I'm interested in this.
We got lots to catch up on. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Bye, y'all.